The International Christian Embassy Jerusalem is your embassy in the heart of Israel, founded in 1980. From our headquarters in Jerusalem through our branches in over 80 nations and yours in Canada, we seek to challenge the Church to take up its scriptural responsibilities, to remind Israel of the promises made to her in the Bible, and to be a source of practical assistance to all the people in the land of Israel. On today's program, we hear what life is like living in the West Bank and a brief historical overview of the area. And hear from doctors with Save a Child's Heart and their free medical care for Palestinians.
My name is Leah Bowman. I'm a tour guide here in Israel, and I want to welcome you to Efrat. I want to welcome you to Efrat. You could say, welcome to suburban Bethlehem, actually, here in Efrat. Why? Because in ancient times, in the Bible, Efrat is mentioned several times as a suburb of Bethlehem, so to speak. And we actually, until the 1990s, until peace broke out, used to actually be able to drive straight through Bethlehem to get to Efrat. Anyone who was here in those days remembers. It was easy, it was peaceful, it was fine. You drive straight through Bethlehem, and you arrive within a very short period of time here to Efrat. Today, since Oslo, since we now have peace here in the region, so now there's a security barrier, there's checkpoints, there's all kinds of things on the road, but here we are. Now I also say suburban Bethlehem because this is an amazing suburb. This is a gorgeous community. We moved here in 2000. And we moved here, yes, we knew it was in what we call the West Bank. We'll get to that. We knew that there was some political associations with moving here. But that's not really why we moved here. We moved here because this is an incredible community. There's over 300,000 Jews living in the area that's called the West Bank. And this is an incredible place to live. These are some of the finest schools. In Efrat, we have over 200 doctors. Some of the most educated people in the country, leaders in the army. We have more officers in the army coming out of these towns, other towns like Efrat, than in any other place in the country. It's an incredible place to live. There's synagogues, there's elementary schools, high schools, supermarkets. It's peaceful, it's quiet, big sidewalks, a great place to raise children, and that's why we moved out here. We moved out here in the year 2000. It may ring a bell because in 2000, we moved out here in August of 2000. And everything was great. And we thought, wow, fabulous place, great schools, this is going to be great. The holidays come around, and I get a call from my mother. I'm originally from Michigan. I get a call from my mother. She calls up and she says, I think it's Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. And she says, I think something's going on over there. And I said, nah, there's nothing going on over here. Everything's fine. I mean, we didn't have a television. We didn't have a radio. What do we know? But everything seemed fine. Like when I walked out the door, everything was nice and quiet and fine. And little did I know we were going to have 5 years. 5 years. It's hard to believe, looking back. It was 5 years of suicide bombings throughout the country, Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, Netanya, all throughout the country, 5 years. Suicide bombings. And on our road, which is the road that you come out here today, on this road, there were many shootings on the road. Shootings from Arab villages that were generally peaceful Arab villages were taken over by extremists, and they were just shooting out of apartments straight onto the road. 16 people from this area were murdered in just a couple of years on the road, till the army came in and they put up a little wall and did a few things and were able to reestablish a safe road again. And this medical center that's behind me was actually built because of what we call the Second Intifada that was on this road over here. You can see it says there in Hebrew, Merkaz Cherem Refui. Amazing project, because in those years you couldn't get to Jerusalem. Jerusalem's where the hospitals are, and we have 80,000 Jews living in this area, which we call the Etzion block. 80,000 people couldn't get access to a hospital, and so they raised the money and built this medical center over here. An amazing thing about Efrat and about what goes on behind the scenes in these communities, not only were they able to raise the money to build a medical center over here for the Jewish community here, but these doctors go on a regular basis to Arab towns around Efrat and are giving free medical care to the Arab towns outside of Efrat, all surrounding. There's an Arab village right over here. has very, very close relations with Efrat. The leaders go to each other's weddings. They're very, very good connection. And we also have within Efrat sometimes that they come in here, that they have to sneak in not because of the residents here, but because of the extremists who are watching them, that they can't come and get medical care from the Jews, from the Zionists, right? But that's what's going on every day. Palestinians are getting free, top quality medical care, and we're very, very proud and happy that we're able to provide that and to do our part, because on the grassroots level, what goes on over here is nothing like what you see in the news. You see in the news, these big burly Israeli soldiers and little Palestinian throwing a rock, and it's not like that. Yes, we have those issues exist. Those issues are real. Those issues are more complex than they even seem when you see them on the screen. But behind that, you have Jews and Arabs shopping together. The grocery store we go to is packed with Muslim Arabs, Christian Arabs, Jews. Christian Arabs from Bethlehem are working in the store side by side with settlers. Imagine, right? Imagine, right? And that's what it is. What I'd like to do is talk about a couple of terms that we hear all the time in the news, and I'd like to explain them from the perspective of this particular area. And many of these terms are inherently political terms, inherently perhaps flawed political terms with an agenda. And so I'd like to explain how they seem to us here in this area in a more organic way, in a more, I would hope, a more authentic way, perhaps. Okay, so first of all, the West Bank. So the West Bank, this seems pretty straightforward. The West Bank is what? The West Bank is this area in yellow. This is the area that Jordan was occupying. It was considered an illegal occupation actually in its day. It was only recognized by Great Britain, Pakistan, and Iraq, and Jordan. Those 4 countries are the only countries in the world that recognize the occupation of this area. And this is the area here called the West Bank. Why is it called the West Bank? Well, this is the Jordan River. So this would be the east bank of the Jordan River, and this is the west bank of the Jordan River. Now, interesting, it seems, okay, that seems logical, that makes sense, but wait a second. If this is the West Bank, if you Google the word riverbank, you will find the definition of a riverbank is the sand, it's a little area on each side of a river. Right? What is that? 5 feet, 10 feet. Let's say it's 50 feet on each side of the river. Here we have 55 kilometers, right? This cannot be defined as a riverbank. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. It's even more absurd if you look at a topographical map. Okay, now here we can see on this map that here's the Jordan River over here. And here is Efrat up here. So the Jordan River is in what we call the Jordan Valley, right? It's a valley. It's quite deep down between the Dead Sea and the Sea of Galilee. And over here, this is Efrat up in the mountains. We're in the mountains. It's absolute. You go find the river from here. Actually, we're closer to the Dead Sea over here than we are to the river itself. But nevertheless, we're up here in the mountains. Now, this mountain range is fascinating. What is this called? What is this? That we are at the top of the mountain ridge. Actually, behind me is really the top of the mountain ridge. You see just a little bit in the distance a beautiful view of the mountain ridge. We call that the spine route. This is a road, an ancient road that, and I always say in the land of Israel, God says where the roads go. There's only one place that you can really put a road in this area. And so the ancient roads were used from the time of Abraham into the Roman times, into modern times today. Today we have Route 60 that you drove on coming out here. That's exactly following the path of the ancient spine route. So this here, we affectionately term it the path of the patriarchs. And this is the road that we know that the patriarchs walked. They walked from Beersheba over here, up the spine route, up to the areas of passes by here, Efrat, Bethlehem, Jerusalem, Shiloh, Shechem, right? This is the spine route for the patriarchs. Abraham and Sarah, Isaac. Abraham on the way to Mount Moriah stops here after walking 3 days from Beersheba, and he looks up and he sees the place that God will show him. Right? This is the intrinsic nature of this area. Now, technically, this area is called Judea. right? We have in the West Bank the lower sections Judea, upper sections Samaria. These are actually the names that go back not 19, not just 19 years, but 3,000 years, over 3,000 years. And here we have a map of the tribes. The different tribes come into the land, visit with Joshua, and this situation exists for quite a long time. And here we have Judea, this yellow, this area over here. Jerusalem is on the border between Judea and Benjamin, right? And that's a whole nother story for another time. Fascinating topic on that. But this, okay, so this is ancient Judea, and the term is used not just by the Jews, but by all historians, by all people, all the way until the time when it's purposefully removed and purposely taken off of the area. Here we have the divided monarchy. After David and Solomon are kings and the monarchy is divided, we have Israel and Judah, the two kingdoms, right? And we have the maps here. This is Judah, this is Israel. Over here is the Dead Sea, so we're over here in this area. And over here, interesting, fascinating, this is the Philistines. Now, this is an amazing word, the Philistines. So we say, oh, the Philistines, but that's the Palestinians, right? See, they were there all along. They were there in the time of King David, right? But the Philistines, the Philistines, these people were actually Greek. They were Greek invaders. Philistine in Hebrew is plishtim. It's from the word pleshet. Pleshet is an invader. The Egyptians down here called them invaders because they came in from outside, from the Greek islands, came into the land of Israel. The Egyptians pushed them up into the Gaza area, and that was the Philistines. And the Philistines but the Philistines are not the ancestors of the Palestinians, not whatsoever. The Philistines were gone already 800 years when the name was applied to the region. Why does this get the name Palestine, named after the Philistines? The Emperor Hadrian, he hates the Jews. Why does he take the name? He hates the Jews. He wants to erase the Jewish connection to the land of Israel. And so he picks an ancient name. No one's going to bother him. These Philistines are not going to turn up and say, hey, that's our land. And it gets the name Palestine. And that name has stuck with us until today. Now, before 1948, Palestinian didn't mean Arab. Palestinian could be Arab, it could be a Jew. Right? There were Palestinian Arabs. We had the Palestine Post. Today it's called the Jerusalem Post. It's a newspaper. So very, very important to understand the background of the terms get thrown around all the time in the news. So what's this word West Bank? So the West Bank is obviously, it's a political term, not a geographical term, but it's a political term. And the idea is to connect the country of Jordan to this area, which it has no connection to whatsoever.
Up next, hear from doctors with Save a Child's Heart and their free medical care for Palestinians.
Our book tells the story of an Israeli-based charity with humble beginnings. We started very small, and we have grown into one of the largest global healthcare humanitarian organizations of its kind in the world today. Nurses, staff, volunteers, and children, 3,300 children from 48 countries. The title of our book, Mending Hearts, Building Bridges, coined by Peter Silverman, who's a member of our advisory board, really tells the whole story in 4 words. It shows how you can focus on mending hearts of children living in countries, some countries that are sometimes hostile towards Israel, that doing our work not only mends hearts, but helps to build bridges of understanding across borders and across continents. We are fortunate to have with us tonight an incredible panel of doctors. We have Dr. Bernie Goldman, former chairman of SACH Canada. We have Dr. Wafik Othman. Wafik is a pathologist. He was trained under the Save a Child's Heart Medical Outreach Training Program, and he now practices anesthesia in the West Bank. And we have Dr. Yayu Mikonen. Dr. Yayu is a young general surgeon who has come to Israel for 5 years to train as the first pediatric cardiac surgeon in his country, Ethiopia, a country of 90 million people. And here, soon to arrive, is our Israeli surgeon, Dr. Hagi Dekel. He is in Toronto for 2 years, for 1 year in Sunnybrook and 1 year at SickKids, and he will return next summer to Israel as the official second surgeon with our team. Lastly, we're really happy to have Craig Offman here tonight, a writer with the Globe and Mail, who will be our moderator, and I turn it over to you.
Thanks very much, Karen. I want to start with Bernie. Bernie, can you tell us where the inspiration from Satch came?
The original inspiration came from a young American surgeon named Ami Cohen, who I met while he was at the Sick Children's here doing a year of pediatric cardiac surgery. Being an Orthodox Jew, he emigrated to Israel, where his parents had lived originally, and he teamed up with a surgeon that I knew for 40-odd years as a children's heart surgeon. The only thing is the Ministry of Health wasn't giving them permission to do children's heart surgery. But through some of his army contacts, before he knew it, he had 2 children from Ethiopia who he had agreed to operate upon. These children had never been to the sea, had never been in an airplane, had never really been outside their little village. They did well, and there came 4 children, then 6 children, then 8 children, swimming in the pool of Netanya, where his parents kept them as well. And before you knew it, they had a program that had reached out, and they got permission to open an official children's heart program, and that was in 1995.
You've been on both sides of the fences in 2 hospitals on both sides of the fences. It's a rare experience. Tell us what that's like. What does that mean for a doctor to be working on both sides of the fences? What is
more experience?
More experience, better on the resume.
Yes, I would tell you. It's sometimes, they have in West Bank children. He's born with congenital heart disease, and he needs operation now in few hours. And they call me, and I call Dr. Tamir, and we take him in few hours, 2-3 hours, to the operating room, to Wolfson.
Across the board.
Across the border, yes.
How is what you do viewed back at home?
90% of people, it's very happy. And that I know, people that I know, is very happy, and they support me, and they tell me it's a very great job.
Agi, welcome. How long have you been doing what you're doing?
So I started at Wolfson Medical Center doing adult and congenital from the beginning on, which was 9 years ago. I graduated, I think 2 years ago I became senior, and I was staff for 1 year, and then I was sent to Canada for 2 years to doing adult and congenital. If you think about the organization and what it stands for and what we are doing, and sometimes it's very nice words and everything is all around and you don't understand it truly. And just jump to my head, for instance, like, in Israel there are a few countries around us who don't like us very much, and sometimes we have conflict between them. And just in the last conflict, when we had some bombs coming from Gaza to our cities, we had a bomb just hitting like 500 to 600 meters away from the hospital in the junction. So what struck me the most is that we stopped everything. We went to see that there is no casualties in the street and everything is okay. And I walked back and I entered the operating room to operate on a girl from Gaza, her mother was waiting outside, and he told her, don't worry, everything will be okay. And she has to worry about her girl inside, and it's a wartime outside. And you go into the operating room, and one of the assisting doctor is an Israeli Arab. The girl is from Gaza. The one who runs the pump machine is also Israeli Arab. The anesthetist could be from the Palestinian Authority. And everyone don't care about anything. We just worry about one thing: to make the surgery right, to heal the girl, the child who was on the table, and make sure that everything goes right with her. Usually we hear the news or we hear music on the background, so in those days we simply close everything not to hear anything. And we just focus on the children. And I think, when it happened, I didn't think about it much, but now when I think about it, it really represents the whole idea of the project. Like, a child is a child. no matter where he came from, no matter of the situation or what's happening around. And this is what we are doing. And the mother outside, it doesn't matter for me if she just came from Gaza, where the bombs are coming now. A child is a child, the mother is the mother. And let's fix her. Let's make sure that she will be healed and have a normal life. And leave the rest for the politics.
Fantastic, thank you.
And there's coming Israel journalist and ask one question for Dr. Sasson, who is the surgeon, and ask him, you are operating girl from Gaza. You don't think this girl, when she's grown up, will come to Israel and kill Israel children? Dr. Sasson looks to him and looks to me and told him, yes, I think this girl, when she grows up, she returned to Israel and doing peace between Israel and Palestine. This is what is meaning in Save the Child, building bridges. Peace program. Also.
There's two essences to Save a Child's Heart, and I'm taking advantage of the microphone just to wrap it up for you. Mending hearts, from acute little newborns to kids who are 5 or 6 or 7 or teens, mainly with rheumatic fever from Africa, Asia, Eastern Europe, mainly with congenital heart disease, things that they're born with in the Mideast. And that's the point of fixing them. The kids from Africa come often anemic, with parasites, with tuberculosis, with malaria, and all that has to be looked after while they're in hospital. So that's the essence of mending hearts. The essence of building bridges is what you see right here. The entire SACH team is voluntary. They receive only their Ministry of Health salary, whether they're in Tanzania, whether they're helping a surgical team in Moldova or Romania, etc. You have a Jew, a Christian, and a Muslim. So this is the essence of building bridges. And the essence of doing what's right in humanitarian aid is to train others to be as good as you are back in their own home. So we are currently training a doctor from the West Bank to be a pediatric surgeon at Ramallah. It's like St. Michael's training somebody to go to the Toronto General, but Ramallah is on the other side of the fence. But we will be working with them, training 5 doctors and 3 nurses for the Ramallah team. Yeah, building bridges, mending hearts. Thank you all for coming. But one thing, that book may have been started by me, but it was finished by Karen Diamond and Wendy Jacobs, who converted it from a kind of academic tome to a beautiful coffee table book. Thanks for coming.
We're at Indigo's in downtown Toronto for the launch of the Mending Hearts and Building Bridges book. And it's created by Save a Child's Heart. And with me I have our daughter, Meredith Holbrook, who is a photographer of many of the pictures that you see within this beautiful coffee table book. Meredith, would you like to explain a little bit about what's in here?
Inside of the book, we have many photos of children who have either had surgery previously or were to have surgery. They also show the families that have been impacted by Save a Child's Heart. One of the most amazing stories that happened to me during the 1.5 year time that I was with Save a Child's Heart was near the end when I was able to travel to Mwanza, Tanzania for 1 week, where they gave free heart surgery to children. They trained a doctor, Dr. Godwin Godfrey, for 5 years, as well as training other doctors in the hospital and giving more medical supplies, as well as doing follow-ups on children that had already had heart surgery in Israel as well as in Tanzania before. The most amazing case that we had during that time was of a child named Juma, who was not scheduled to have heart surgery and came in for checkup and collapsed on the floor. Juma's about 3 to 4 years old, a little adorable child from Tanzania who came in with his mother, and he had been working off of 30% oxygen for his entire life, which limits him to playing, to taking part in school, to doing anything besides sleeping. So Juma comes in and he collapses on the ground. The nurses make up a reason to have the surgery, emergency surgery, the next morning. Not really telling the doctors exactly how difficult the case was, because he was a very, very severe case, and the doctors were not necessarily prepared for such a severe case. However, when they opened up his heart, they found out that they were in some trouble. But regardless of all the setbacks and the limited supplies, they were able to change this little boy's life. And within a day, there was extreme changes, and overwhelming amount of life came back into this little boy. And just a day after that, he was able to run for the first time in his life.
How did you feel about that?
Well, it's amazing seeing the change of a sick boy or a sick child turn into a healthy one in just a matter of hours, really, in that sense. And that is what Save a Child's Heart is about in that way, is that they really do give life back to children that had no other hope besides Save a Child's Heart.
Thank you for joining us today, and be sure to visit our website at www.ecejcanada.tv. 100% of what we receive from you toward a project goes to that designation. Through your contribution to ICEJ Canada, you can participate by giving to Bet Singer Children's Orphanage Bathrooms, Christian Friends of Yad Vashem, Home for Holocaust Survivors, Israeli Youth at Risk Summer Camp in Canada, Operation Life Shield Bomb-Proof Shelters, Red Carpet Project Women at Risk in Tel Aviv, Shoulder to Shoulder New Immigrant Partner Project, Women's Shelter Project, General Fund, Gift Estate Securities Funds, ICEJ Communication Media Fund.